welcome to our Yoga Hero Teachers podcast. This episode today is focusing on productivity for a clear mind. Increasing your efficiency and productivity is important for three main reasons. 1. Helps you clear your mind. 2. Gives you more time for new projects or for the things that you love or for the people that you love. And 3, reduces stress, which in turn, as we know, helps to improve sleep, improve digestive function, improve immune function, etc., etc. This episode is not about becoming more efficient so that you can just do more work. It's to give you two things back which many of us are lacking these days: time and mental clarity. The methodology that I'm going through in this episode is based on the methodology from the book called Getting Things Done, which was written by David Allen. I first stumbled across this book in 2018, which was the year that Yoga Hero had our first teacher training course. B, at the studio we had a £100,000 refurbishment that I was overseeing. And C, I got married. So it was quite an exceptionally busy year. Not only did I want to give everything to all of these three projects, ideally they would have happened at different times, but so is the way things work out, hey? There was obviously a lot of general business running to do as well. And there was still only a set number of hours in each day and each week, and a finite amount of energy available to me. I wanted to hire people to help, but there simply wasn't the money in the business. So I had two options: to work more hours, which we know isn't really an option, definitely not long-term option anyway, or to be more productive with the time that I was working. Things always seem to resolve themselves, don't they? And as it happened, this book basically just fell into my lap with a post-it note on it from the universe saying, "Holly, read me." So I did, and I haven't looked back. Now, I am by no means the most efficient person in the world, and since becoming pregnant late 2019, my productivity completely nosedived, to be honest. My first trimester was challenging, shall we say, and not long after that we were straight into lockdown, which completely changed how I focused on the business. Even though I lost my way with productivity, when I come back to this methodology and I go back to basics and clear some space on my physical desk and in my mind, it just helps. It helps so much. So with that in mind, I am really looking forward to sharing this with you. I think it's just so incredibly useful and empowering. Don't worry about taking notes if you're on the move. We have a write-up for you which explains the mindset and the steps that I'll talk you through in this episode. We also have a link to the Getting Things Done book, should you want to know more. And all of that is available for you at yogahero.co.uk/podcast3. Let's look at the general concept behind this methodology, which is basically getting everything out of your head so that your brain is used for things like creativity, for problem solving, for logistics. It is not clogged up with remembering. So getting everything out of your head and into a safe place really underpins this whole methodology. The basics of how it works are: A, your calendar is only used for appointments. So things like meetings or a trip to the dentist or a physio appointment or a yoga session that you are teaching or a yoga session that you've booked, etc. So things that have to happen at a set time on a set day. Then you have a to-do today list, which is only for things that have to be done today. Something like paying a bill so that you don't risk a fine, or preparation for a class that happens tomorrow, or submitting something so that you don't miss a deadline, etc. These tasks do not go in your calendar because if you put into your calendar paying your credit card bill at 10 o'clock tomorrow, and then at 5 to 10 tomorrow, your best friend rings and you take the phone call, then the reminder and the task have disappeared. So they don't have to be done at a set time, so don't put them down for a set time. Have them on a flexible list that you can do at any point, but they do get done on that day, or they do get done today. Everything that doesn't need to be done today goes somewhere else. Okay, so at this point you might be thinking, oh my God, what? You might be thinking, if I take the things that do need to be done, but not necessarily today, then I won't do them. There's just absolutely no way that they're going to get done. Then, like, I'm with you. I thought exactly the same. I thought, okay, this approach just can't possibly be for me and the way that I work. Oh, well, I'll just go back to how I've always done things. But I was wrong. I opened up and I gave it a go. And like I said before, I haven't looked back, and I can't recommend it enough. So remember those basics for now, that the calendar is for appointments. You have a to-do today list and everything else sits somewhere else. Trust me for a moment, and let's just take a little side step. You know that you have a finite amount of time each week. There's only so many hours in a day. There's only so many hours in a week. And you know that you have a finite amount of energy. If you're like any of the yoga teachers that I know, you're keen to keep learning about yoga and keen to keep practicing yoga regularly. Maybe you're also working a different job, maybe full-time, maybe part-time. You might also be running a house, maybe looking after a family, having a social life, etc. So I'm telling you, it is possible to do all of this and not be stressed out and have a clear mind. As well as time and energy, another thing that's finite is decision making. When you know that your decision making power is a finite amount, you then know that the things that you want to be making decisions about are how to proceed, or how to solve that problem, or how to write up that workshop, or whether to cover that class or not. You do not want to use up your decision-making power on what task to do next, or how do I approach that task, or how am I going to get that done today, or what's the next highest priority thing that I should be doing. When you follow this methodology, you'll have things in your calendar for today that are immovable. For example, teaching a lunchtime class at 12:15, pick the kids up at 3:30. You then have maybe 3 or 4 things that you must do today. So pay your gas bill, call Sarah about covering her classes before she goes on holiday tomorrow, and clean the bathroom before your visitors arrive tomorrow, for example. Then you have a list of things that it might be great to do today or tomorrow or in the near future, but they're not on your to-do today list and they're not clogging up your brain. If your to-do today list has things in it that you know don't really need to be done today, then you won't believe the list. And all of the items that are on it lose their importance. Instead, if you have your to-do today list, which is stuff that has to be done today, then A, you believe the list, And B, you don't use up that valuable decision-making power on what task to do next or what really needs to be done today, because it's just absolutely clear as crystal in front of you. And then C, you do the things that need to be done today. And D, you go to bed a happy rabbit because you're clear, you know there's nothing that you've missed, you've ticked off your tasks for today and maybe completed a few others as well. The alternative, which I think is really common for a lot of us, is having a load of things on your list and A, not getting through them all, or B, not finishing off a single task because you're paralyzed by trying to decide what to do, how to do it, etc. This approach means that you go to bed a sad rabbit because there's things on the list that you'll see again tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And each day you feel slightly worse about your productivity and your list and yourself, and it's just no good. So let's set an intention right now that the way that we approach our productivity is going to be a way that makes us feel good and productive and efficient, not in a way that makes us feel like a failure. Okay, so now we know the why, but how do we actually get to that point? To get to this place where we are productive for a clear mind, it's not a faraway magical mystery place. It's somewhere that you can get to maybe even by the end of today, maybe. But in the near future anyway. In order to get there, though, there's a few things that I need to explain in terms of mindset. 1. This approach gives you the most back when it's applied to your whole life. So all aspects of your personal life and all aspects of your professional life. And like I mentioned before, you might be a yoga teacher that has another job, part-time or full-time job. So just remember this approach, it really gives the most back when it's applied to your whole life, personal and professional, so yoga teacher and other job if applicable. 2. Anything with more than one step is a project. Anything with more than one step is a project. For example, cleaning the bathroom is a project because your steps might be something along the lines of cleaning the sink, cleaning the toilet, cleaning the bath, changing the towels, mopping the floor, etc. It might sound silly that you need to be writing out each task needed to clean the bathroom, but it's really important to start thinking about your task list this way. So let's look at another example just quickly. You might want to create a workshop about the chakras. This would be a project because the steps or the tasks to create your chakra workshop might be something along the lines of select a date, name the workshop, create the write-up, find or create a promotional image, decide on a price. And by the way, if you're struggling with that, don't forget that pricing strategies was covered in our first podcast. You also will need to schedule in promotion, etc., etc. Okay, so remember, we're looking at mindset. So in your productivity mindset, anything with more than one step or more than one task is a project. 3, and this step is really non-negotiable. To get going with this method, you have to capture everything in your life that needs sorting or doing or scheduling or planning, however big or small that is. Everything. Capture everything. And when you do this, you'll probably have about 8,964 projects and tasks and what have you. Like, you will have a ridiculous amount, but that's okay. Remember, we're getting all of everything out of our heads and into a safe place. So when you know that all of your projects and intentions and tasks and deadlines are written down and in a safe place, then you know that they will get done. So then it really helps to clear the mind. And that's the whole point that we're doing this. So to recap, you capture everything, put it in one place, whether that's a notepad or a whiteboard or an application on your phone. But for now, capture everything and put it in one place. Just like one more time, because this is really important. You are going to capture everything that you can and put it in one place. So just for clarity, in a moment, I'll go through a step-by-step task list of how to actually implement this methodology in your life. For now, we're just looking at mindset. So your mindset is that everything is out of your head and in a safe place. 4. This might sound really obvious, but to know when something is done, you must know what done is. So, for example, let's say on your task list at the moment, just in a list in a notepad that you have, you've just got written on there like desktop. And what you actually mean is sorting out all of the files on your computer desktop. But when will you consider that task done? Will it be when all of those files are filed in exactly the correct place and labeled exactly correctly? Or will it be when you've done a percentage of them? Or will it be when the desktop looks clear, but actually it's because you've moved everything into a folder and named it to sort? So there's no right or wrong answer here at all. It's completely personal for you. But in order for you to be able to mentally and physically tick something as done, you really need to know what done is. So keep thinking, what is done for each project and each task? The 5th thing that I want to tell you in terms of our productivity mindset is to believe and to trust that you are not going to be firefighting day in, day out anymore, but you're actually going to be making really great progress. 6. You'll have a maximum of 8 projects to work on at any one time. Trust me, this is really, really important and this is going to work. A maximum of 8 projects, which includes professional projects and personal projects. If you pick a new one up, that's fine, but one needs to be dropped off your current projects list. And that's a maximum of 8. So you could have 4 and that would be fine. You could have 6, that could be fine. You could have 1 and you'd be very lucky. 7. The effectiveness of this methodology is in the next action. So a next action is the very, very next step that you take to move a project along. So going back to our example earlier on of desktop, just saying that desktop is in your list. If I was to come and sit next to you and say, okay, let's cross this off the list. What do we need to do next? Can you just crack on sorting out your desktop folders? Then you might say something like, oh, well, no, because first of all, I need to set up a couple of folders, one for a workshop that I'm teaching and one for some photos of poses that I've taken recently. Then I'd be like, okay, well, can you just create those folders now? And you'd be like, no, because I just need to look up the names of the poses that we took or something like that. Anyway, looking up the names of the poses for the photos that you took, that is your next action. Now, if it seems silly writing it down, then that is actually a great task. Remember, We are wanting to remember nothing. Everything needs to be written down in a safe place. Okay. So if it seems silly writing it down, don't worry, you'll get into the habit of it and it really isn't wasted time. The more you can free your brain up to do logistics and problem solving and to be creative, the better. So getting everything out of your head, even what seems to be blindingly obvious, that's really important. 8. The 2-minute rule. And this really follows on from 7, the next action. So the 2-minute rule is if you can do the thing that you're thinking of in 2 minutes, then just do it. Because going to your task list, writing it down, making sure it's in the right place, making sure that there's a calendar reminder if needed, etc., that takes 2 minutes. So if the task that you're thinking of takes 2 minutes or less, then you just do it. If the task takes more than 2 minutes, then you don't do it. And we'll talk about what you do later on. But the 2-minute rule and capturing everything, they are really the most important things. Number 9, and this is the last point about mindset, productivity mindset. This methodology, being productive, being efficient, this isn't another thing to beat yourself up about. How you understand and implement being effective, being productive, that is right for you. I very, very much believe that 2 things are really important. 1, capturing everything, and 2, the 2-minute rule. If there's nothing else that you take from this podcast, take those 2 things, put them into your life, and just see what kind of impact that has on you. So our productivity mindset is now much more looking at step-by-step actions to complete one of your maximum 8 projects. Your mind is not full of tasks, or it's not full of trying to work out priorities. It's not trying to remember. It's all there in front of you. Now let's look at the tasks that we actually need to implement this. I would personally recommend listening to this with an open mind and then going and getting your worksheet and implementing the tasks when you have a few spare minutes or hours. Now let's look at the tasks actually needed to implement this methodology. I would recommend listening to the rest of this podcast just with an open mind, let it sink in, let your brain go over it, and then going and getting your worksheet from yogahero.co.uk/podcast3 and implementing all or some of the tasks when you have a couple of spare hours or maybe even just 30 minutes and seeing how you get on. So here is our step-by-step task list. The first and potentially most important step is to capture as much as you can. So let me just say a little bit about this. Let's for a moment think about the philosophy from the Bhagavad Gita. We know that Krishna says to Arjuna, on this path, effort never goes to waste and there is no failure. Now, Krishna is obviously talking about spiritual awareness, but I think it applies here too, right? We're trying to make our lives more effective and more efficient, and potentially that is to free ourselves up for learning about spiritual awareness. So I would really say put to one side any thoughts that this has got to be perfect or complete or whole, and go about capturing as much as you can when you can. And I really think start here rather than starting by trying to complete tasks or complete steps or deciding how you're going to note and store everything. I don't think you can decide whether a notebook or an app or a piece of software is right for you until you get an idea of the breadth of the tasks and the projects that you have. Remember, a project is something with just more than one task, that's all. So if there's 2 tasks, it's a project. So to capture everything, or to capture as much as you can, go through all your notebooks, all your lists, all your piles of paper, all of your files, your post-it notes, your purse, your laptop bag, every room in your house, every place that you work, and capture everything and anything that needs doing, sorting, planning, considering, thinking about, etc. Capture everything. Note all the tasks down, note all the projects down. It might be something like remember the milk, all the way through to completely redecorate the spare room. There's just note everything down. Just capture everything, get it written down, and you know that it's a safe place. There's a really important rule that we have to think about when we are capturing, which is no completing tasks, just capturing. Your brain can be in capture mode or process mode. So don't change modes. Just focus on capture, capture, capture. Capture everything that you possibly can. And yet you might, like I said before, have 8,946 projects. That's okay. It's okay. You're going to put them in a safe place and you'll do them. At some point, we'll work out priorities. It's okay. All right. It's much better that they are written down than floating about in your head. Remember, we are freeing up mental space. For me, I think that capturing everything is something that you can do over time. David Allen recommends doing it in one go, but I didn't. And I still found it really, really useful. And I think when you open your mind up to thinking this way, then the mind continues to think this way, and stuff pops into your head as you are out on a walk or in the shower, etc., etc. So just make sure that whatever system you're using, or whatever you're using for now, I should say, have it close by to note down things that pop into your mind so you don't have to remember anything. To get your headspace freed up, you must know and trust that what you're writing down will be safe and it won't disappear. So no notes floating about on the kitchen table where they might get tidied away, nothing left in the bottom of your handbag. Just have it all in one central place. And like I say, that might be a notebook for now. So to recap, step 1, capture everything, or at least capture as much as you can. Step 2 is to choose maximum 8 projects that you'll be working on. So if something comes up that's really important, you can add that into your current projects list, but you must remove one. And all of your other projects go onto a future list. So they're still there. You'll review them regularly, but we have maximum 8 that we're focusing on moving forward. And believe me, you'll be so much more productive focusing on 8 than you will focusing on 894. Step 3. Take those maximum 8 projects and for each one write in all of the steps or tasks that will complete that project, and make sure that you know what done is for each task and for the project. For example, our earlier example of creating a chakra workshop, we had scheduled the date for the workshop, think of a name, create the write-up, create or find a promotional image, set a price, and schedule in the promotional work on Instagram and Facebook and what have you. So write down all of the steps, all of the tasks that will complete that project. Your tasks, your steps, they might change. You might take some out, you might add some in. It doesn't matter. You're just getting down as much as you can to make it make sense so that you're getting it out of your head. Remember, we're clearing the mind. So clear it. Get it onto paper. Even if it just seems so bloody obvious, like, of course you're going to do that task. It doesn't matter. Write it down, get it out of your head. Step 4. So now we're looking at the next actions, which are the actions for each of your 8 projects that are the next actions. And if there's any, but first I need to, then that becomes your next action. Look at the next action. And for all of them, you have 3 options. One is to do it. So 2-minute rule, that wonderful, wonderful 2-minute rule. If it's going to take 2 minutes or less, just do it. If it's going to take more than 2 minutes, we're in the mode of processing here. So you either want to delegate it. Would it make more sense for somebody else to do this task? Or defer it. When you're deferring a task, you have to be 100% certain that those deferred tasks won't ever get lost. So make sure that they are noted down in a safe place with everything else, and you'll come back to them as part of your regular reviews, which we'll talk about in a few moments' time. Step 5. Now, let's have a look at the tasks that it would be great to do soon, that you need to do soon, but they're not really part of a project and they don't definitely have to be done today. For example, pick up milk because you're kind of running out, or call Denise for a catch up, or reply to a text message from Sunita, or water the plants at home. These tasks fall into categories. So a category is really the where and or the how that you'll do the task. For example, picking up milk you could do when you're out on another errand. So you're really efficient. I personally have a category of supermarket. So anything that I need to get from the supermarket is already there on my supermarket list. So when I find myself at the supermarket, then I remember to get all of the things that I keep forgetting to get, like foil. Just didn't have any foil for like 2 weeks. And then I put it on my supermarket list. And when I was at the supermarket, I checked the list and there it was saying, "Buy me." So categories where, for example, supermarket, town, school, etc. Or how, that might be like the call or the text. So what this means is if you find yourself in town, you can quickly consult your town list and do those tasks. Or if you're waiting for a train and it's 10 minutes late and you've got your phone in your hand, you can consult your phone calls category and see, oh, you need to call Denise. Let's just go back to the point of why we're doing all of this. You're doing it for more time and more mental bandwidth. So if you can use your time really effectively, i.e. call Denise while you're waiting for the train, then you'll get your time back this evening, right? So you can do a relaxing yoga class or have a bath or have an early night because you've already spoken to Denise. So task is done. Step 6. How do you decide what to do next? There are 4 ways that you can decide what to do next. One is category. So again, if you're in a cafe and you only have your phone with you, then you can't sort out your computer desktop, or you can't hoover the living room floor. You can't water the plants at home. The only tasks that we can ever do are those that fit in with the context, so where you are and what you have with you. You can decide by time available. If you have 10 minutes available, you can make a quick call. But if you have all afternoon, you could research that new workshop that you were thinking of running. You can decide based on priority. There will, of course, always be some things that are more important and more urgent than others. So it makes sense to do the more important or more urgent tasks first. And lastly, you can decide based on your energy level. If you're dog tired, well, go to bed. But also maybe just reply to a couple of urgent emails and then sign off. Whereas if you're full of the joys of spring, maybe it's a great time to call that new workplace that you want to teach yoga at. Maybe it's a time to film a new video. Let's recap on these tasks of how you can implement this methodology in your life. One is to capture as much as you can and put it in a safe place. 2, to choose maximum 8 projects to work on. 3, with those maximum 8 projects, write in all of the steps or tasks that you need to do to complete that project. 4, decide the next actions. And if there's anything, but first I need to, then that is your next action. 5 is defining categories for those sort of floating about tasks that don't really fit into a project and they don't necessarily have to be done today, but you would like to do them soon. And 6 is getting into the habit of deciding what to do next. And there's 4 ways that you can choose what to do next. Category, where you are and how you would do the task. Time available. Priority. And energy level. I hope that this is all sounding, first of all, doable. I really hope that it sounds accessible. It doesn't sound lofty. It's definitely something that I've found so incredibly useful. I feel like it's given me a lot of time back and prevented me from experiencing a lot of stress that I would have experienced otherwise. We have our mindset. We've got all that sorted. We know how we're going to approach productivity now. And we have our step-by-steps about how to put this into place. Now, believe me, the book goes into a lot more detail about all of these steps and why you would do them and how you can do them and what have you. And I mean, it's like a textbook. It's something that you could reference bits here and there, but it's quite a big book, right? So just to be really open and honest about that. So once you've got your mindset set and once you've put your steps in action, then how do you avoid what I had done recently, which is letting it all kind of go to pot? How do you stay in the flow of being productive? Let's look at some real life yoga teacher related examples so that we can really get to grips with how this works in a real life setting. Let's say you have an idea for a blog post that you want to write. You don't have time at the moment, but you know that you definitely want to write it at some point in your life. So let's just, for argument's sake, that it's on the yamas and the niyamas. You'd write this down as a project and just put it in your future projects. And that's it. We're going to talk about the value of a regular review soon, but knowing that your brilliant blog post idea, it can't be done at the moment, but it can be done in the future, knowing that it's not just going to disappear. It's not going to fall out of your head. It's not going to get forgotten. That then allows you to focus on what you've got in front of you and not worry about trying to remember the blog post idea as well as trying to do all the other things that you do every day as well. Okay. Let's now look at a more personal example. Let's say that you happen to look at a calendar and you realize, oh my goodness, it's my best friend's birthday next weekend. You haven't got time to sort it out right this very second, but you absolutely do not want to forget. So you capture it. You might write down Rebecca's birthday, exclamation mark. And then when you come to do your review, you'll pick it up and you'll be able to write out all of the steps, all of the tasks that are associated with Rebecca's birthday. And that might be throw a humongous party, or it might be send a card, or it could be anywhere in the middle. If you know that you're going to need to get to this before your next weekly review, then you can put a reminder on your calendar. Let's say Rebecca's birthday is on Thursday, but you need to get the card in the post on Monday. Then it goes on Monday's to do today list. Okay, so a little reminder on Monday, not associated with the time, because if that time passes and you haven't done the task, then there's no reminder then. It all kind of disappears. Let's have a look at another task. So as yoga teachers, we might work in a variety of settings, and these different settings have different dates that they'll pay us. Let's say Studio X pays you on the 1st of the month, and Gym Y pays you on the 15th of the month, and Workplace Z pays you 28 days after you put your invoice in. But you might be really needing a new laptop. You need something that's going to be powerful enough to stream all of your Zoom classes, for example. You can't afford it at the moment, but you know that when Workplace Z pays your invoice, that you'll be able to afford it. So let's say that you put your invoice in on the 1st of April. Therefore, it's due at the 29th of April. So on the 29th of April, you put a reminder in your calendar on the 29th of April, check that I've been paid, and if so, buy a new laptop. Lastly, taking an example which has no time sensitivity whatsoever. Something like visit Bali. So you can create a project, visit Bali, and that could be it. You could label this as someday maybe. This is a really nice idea that David Allen has. So these are things that have no time sensitivity, not really any next actions as it is at the moment, but getting them out of your head so that you don't forget them, so that they don't disappear, but so that you're not having to hold on to them in the meantime. As you go through your life and you become more productive and time passes by, it might be that this project, Visit Bali, becomes one of your 8 maximum projects that you're working on currently, and it starts to manifest and it starts to materialize. But if you want to visit Bali, you know that it's definitely something that you want to work towards. You just get it out of your head, onto your future projects list, and then deal with it as and when the time is right for you. Let's just have a moment to recap. We started off looking at the mindset that it's good to have in place to get the most out of this methodology. Then we went through a task list to put it into place. And I just want to reiterate again that the book is a fair book. It is a fairly big book. And obviously there is loads of information in there. I'm hoping that The information that I give you on this podcast is enough to implement increased productivity for you, but also to give you a bit of a taster for it, so that if you think, yeah, this approach really works for me, I could dive into this a little bit more, then you can buy the book and you know that it's not going to be wasted money. You know that that you really want it. And then we reviewed the mindset and the task list with some examples of how you can put the approach into place. It's perhaps needless to say that in order for this approach to be as useful to you as it possibly can be, it needs some maintenance, it needs some love, it needs to be kept current. And that is personally what I really fell down with. That's where I have kind of struggled. I've said before, I'm a big believer in removing barriers. So I just really want to stress that the way that you implement this methodology is right for you. I really don't think there's any kind of one size fits all. I don't think there's any wrong way to approach this. So don't worry about doing it wrong. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't worry about doing it wrong. Don't worry about doing it perfectly. Just do it. Just start. Just have a go. Whether it's taking a few moments and capturing as much as possible, or just implementing the 2-minute rule in your life. If there's a task that takes 2 minutes or less, you just do it when you think about it. And if it takes more, then you note it down in a safe place and you know that it won't get forgotten. You know that it won't get lost. The way that you keep the whole system current and relevant and useful is by taking regular reviews. I've mentioned this before, but regularly reviewing your entire project list, regularly reviewing your entire task list. And I actually have a review recorded for you, which is our next podcast. So I'd just like to read an extract from the book, from Getting Things Done by David Allen. And this is from chapter 8, which is called Reflecting, Keeping It All Fresh and Functional. He says, the purpose of this whole method of workflow management is not to let your brain become lax, but rather to enable it to be free to experience more elegant, productive, and creative activity. In order to earn that freedom, however, your brain must engage on some consistent basis with all your commitments and activities. You must be assured that what you're doing needs to be doing, and that it's okay to not do what you're not doing. That facilitates the condition of being present, which is the optimal state from which to operate. So, reviewing your system on a regular basis, reflecting on the contents, keeping it current and functional are prerequisites for that kind of clarity and stability. And that's why a regular review is really important. So I would say, if you are interested in implementing this, then go through the task list. Remember that you've got them written down for you at yogahero.co.uk/podcast3. And give yourself a few days. Once you think you've captured everything, or as much as you can, just give yourself a few days, see what pops up. And then maybe go through your first review. And don't forget that that is our next podcast. So you don't need to worry about that right now. When you're in a place where you think you're ready to review and go through the first review and see what it's all about, then our next podcast is there for you to do exactly that. So I hope that this has been useful. I hope it's been inspiring. Like I've said a few times, I really feel like it's given me a lot of time and a lot of headspace back. I am definitely not the most efficient person in the world. I would never, ever claim that. And if I did, I'd never get away with it. But I think I probably manage to get through a lot more than I would do if I didn't have this approach in place. So, like I say, hopefully it's been useful. Go ahead, take yourself to yogahero.co.uk/podcast3, get the task list, implement it when you've got time, and I would absolutely love to hear how you've got on. You can send us a DM at yogahero_teachers or drop us an email, hello@yogahero.co.uk. But enjoy, get inspired, maybe get yourself a copy of the book, and I will see you next time we meet. In the meantime, take lots and lots of care, and thank you so much for listening.